two types of errors in testing of hypothesis. In making a decision whether to accept or reject the null hypothesis, it is all based on a sample study. So we extract a sample from a population, a representative sample from a population, and we conduct a study on a sample, and we usually state a null hypothesis. So we are going to make a decision at the end of the analysis whether to accept the null hypothesis or whether to reject a null hypothesis. So based on the study on a sample, we are going to make a decision whether to accept or reject the null hypothesis. So while making this decision, so we may commit errors in making a decision. So these are the two types of errors in testing of hypothesis. They are type 1 error and type 2 error. Let us understand this in a better way with one example. Take an example. The difference between two population means is 0. Actually, it is 0, means there exists no difference. So in reality, but in our study, the tests of significance, they indicate that the results of our study, they are in par with the rejection of a null hypothesis. So they make us to reject a null hypothesis. All the findings of our study, which we are conducting on a sample, the findings, they are indicating that they are in against with the null hypothesis. So by considering the tests of significance in our study, we are rejecting a null hypothesis. In that case, when we are rejecting a null hypothesis which is actually a true based on our tests of significance in our study, then we are committing a type 1 error. So rejecting a null hypothesis which is true based on the tests of significance in our study, we are rejecting a true null hypothesis. So then we are committing a type 1 error, that is called as type 1 error. Chance of committing another error, it is type 2 error. So type 2 error is actually accepting a null hypothesis which is false. So in reality, the null hypothesis is false, but the tests of significance in our study, they make us to accept the null hypothesis which is actually false. So that decision of accepting a null hypothesis which is actually false, it is called as type 2 error. So actually there exists a true difference between the two population means, but the tests of significance in our study, they suggest us to accept the null hypothesis. So in that case we are doing a mistake, that is we are committing an error, that is called as type 2 error. So what we are stating in null hypothesis, there exists no difference between two means, but here what is happening, so even then there is a true difference existing between two population means our tests of significance, they are suggesting us to accept the null hypothesis. So in that case it is called as type 2 error. Type 1 error is otherwise called as alpha error, and type 2 error is otherwise called as beta error. Aim of every researcher, it is always to reduce both the errors, but in practical it is not possible because of fixed sample size. It is not always possible to control both the errors simultaneously. So if he tries to minimize the type 1 error, there is a chance of committing type 2 error. It will increase always. So in general it is more risky to accept the false hypothesis than to reject a true hypothesis. That is why type 2 error is more risky, more dangerous than type 1 error. So they always say in general, so it is very risky to accept a false hypothesis. So hypothesis, null hypothesis, it is false. If we are accepting it, it is more risky, more dangerous. That is type 2 error is more dangerous. So than rejecting a null hypothesis which is actually true. So the type 2 error is more risky than type 1 error, they say.